I'm going to just talk just briefly about the new Student Integrity Code, where to find it, the changes we went through, and what it looks like now, and then show you again where to find it on the website. And then if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer questions. Sound good? Okay. So, for those of you who don't know how we got here, our previous code was over 24 years old. That was way before I went to college, so it was time. It was more than time. So in August of 2017, we did form a committee of faculty, staff, and students to take on revising that integrity code. In the academic year of 2017-2018, we went on what we called listening sessions. So we went around campus and held open forums for faculty, staff, and students. We did targeted ones, we did open ones for everyone to come in, and we had some questions. But really, we wanted to hear about how students, faculty, and staff interacted with the integrity code, what was going well, what wasn't going well. And so we wanted to hear all that information. We also worked with institutional research and did focus groups on students who have been through the process and students who have not been through the process to also get feedback that way as well, and had some targeted questions there. And then we also worked with institutional research, and we had questions specific to the integrity code and conduct process on the 6-week survey. And if I'm remembering correctly, that went to first-year students. It also went to senior students. And then we worked and did a lot of researching and benchmarking. So we looked at over 30 other colleges and universities around the country, everything from big public institutions all the way down to small private liberal arts and everything in between. We also looked at a number of Hispanic serving institutions, Native colleges and universities, and historically Black colleges and universities, also to compare codes, which, as you could know, is probably really exciting. I liked it; it was a lot of fun, but it was a lot of making sure who has what in their code, what does that look like, what's the wording look like. And then summer of 2018, I spent a lot of time rewriting, writing the new code and procedures. And one of the things you'll notice this year is that the Student Integrity Code is actually now 2 documents. There's a policy document and there's a procedures document. And the reason we did that is because the way that our policies work here on this campus is any policy changes have to go through the Board of Trustees, which is a year to a multi-year process, potentially, depending on the types of changes you're doing, which is a lot. And so we didn't want to end up back here where we have a 24-year-old code, right? So we did that. We have our policies, and then procedures is the actual conduct process, like how do we go about that? And that document we can approve with student senate, faculty senate, and staff senate to make some changes on a quicker basis if we need to. Because this is new, we're going to hit hiccups. It's going to happen. No document is ever perfect. And so we wanted to be able to set ourselves up in a way that we could revise that to change with our students, with our population, with how things are going. So. Fall of 2018, last fall, we did a tour of the draft of the code and went back again to do listening and feedback sessions. We did a lot of those with faculty, staff, and students, again, having folks look at the code and giving feedback. We also, after hearing from ASAPs that they felt students didn't have enough time with it, we provided the documents online and provided an online space for students to give us feedback as well, even what classes had ended, so that if people didn't have time during the academic year, during winter break, we allowed that space there. And then we went back and reworked some things. So took the feedback and reworked some different areas of the policy and the procedure. And then in spring 2019, we got approval from faculty, staff, and student senates. And then in May, received approval from the Board of Trustees. And then we implemented that new code on August 1st of this year. And the website is now up and running, so it's very exciting. Questions so far? No? Okay. So, what's different about the code? We wanted to be clear. Something that when I came in June of 2017 to my position, and then also what we heard from the feedback sessions was matching, right? This code is not clear, it's not transparent. We have examples for standards, but they're not as exhaustive as they could be. And me as a conduct officer, I don't want to charge a student with something that's not written there, right? Because then it's like this secret that we're trying to hide something, and that's not the goal of the conduct process. So we are outlining a lot more things in terms of being clear and transparent. And some of it hasn't changed. It's just that we put it in front of you to say, here's how we make these decisions, here's how we do this. So again, trying to be really upfront about the conduct process. So in terms of jurisdiction, looking at things like how do we determine if a student organization or group is going to go through the conduct process as a whole versus as an individual student, right? How do we decide if something from off campus is going to be held to the code on campus? So we talk about those things and how we make those decisions. We also talk about interim measures or emergency action, how we make those decisions, who makes those decisions, and what the appeal process for those are. The standards, it looks like there's a lot more standards, but really, again, we're trying to be clear and transparent and make sure that students know what behavior is expected or where the boundaries are there. We have always allowed support persons in our process, but it was not clear what that meant, who those people could be, or what their role was. So again, putting that front and center.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
I need her.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt.
That's fine.
But not
Thank
the
you.
door's unlocked now, so I can move that trash can.
Cool. Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt.
You're good. So yeah, so the support persons are in there as well, because a student can have a support person with them through the entire process, at any meeting they want them for, but they don't often know that until they get in there and then we tell them that. So now it is, again, front and center. Investigations have always been a thing, but again, we didn't have it in our code of what that actually looked like and what student rights and responsibilities were through the entire process, so that's in there. And then filing a report. Students, I think, maybe knew that they could file a report, but besides talking to your RA, what did that actually mean, and what if you don't have an RA? What if you're off campus? So it walks you through how you can file a report, what kinds of information we're looking for. There is no time limit on that report, just knowing that if it is way later or someone's graduated, it does kind of limit our ability to address the situation. So just again, being very upfront with our students about what this process looks like. So big changes that you may see in our old code, we had major and minor type violations. We've done away with that. We don't just have a distinction between the two anymore. And the reason is because when it came to major violations, it automatically meant I had to go through an investigation. And sometimes I have all the information I need. And so I'm creating more stress and more meetings for students who are like, yeah, I had that in my room. Why are we going through all these meetings? Can we just get this over with and talk about it? Whereas I had to put that extra step in there. So it allows me to kind of flex with what information we have and what the student needs there. And it also gave really weird kind of distinctions as far as like, if you have multiple violations, you might move to a major. And that's still kind of true that it could be a higher level if you have multiple violations. But if you have 3 noise violations, I'm not taking you through an integrity board, like, unless there's something really funky going on with that situation. So it gives us more flexibility, to meet the students where they're at and not just keep us in these kind of black and white type categories. Higher level, we'll go to the integrity board. So if there is a student or a group going through a situation where suspension or expulsion could be on the table, doesn't mean it's going to happen, but could be on the table, it is going to go to an integrity board to have their case heard. Again, we have more standards, but they're clearly defined. And now we have incorporated, again, for the student piece, we do have 2 levels of appeal. It used to be that if you wanted to appeal your conduct case, you would do so to our Vice President, Dean of Students, Dr. Baker, and Dr. Baker's decision was final. That's no longer the case. If you have suspension or expulsion, we've created a 2nd level appeal for you to have your appeal heard. And so if you have been suspended or expelled, then you do have the right to go to the provost after Dr. Baker to have your appeal heard, and then the provost's decision, Dr. Galen's decision, is final. And then commitment to review. So we, at the very bottom of both the procedures and the policy, you will see that we have information about how folks can submit feedback to us. We are open, again, like I said in the beginning, this is a new code, a new policy, a new procedure. There will be bumps in the road. There's going to be with any new process. And so we welcome feedback. So please, if you or you're working with other students that want to provide that feedback to us and comments, please let us do that, because we have committed to constantly review this every single year to make sure that we are doing the best for the students and our community as we move forward. Okay. Now that I've talked at you for a little bit, no, just kidding. I thought that was the questions. I want to talk just some more now that I've talked at you. What does this look like? How does this all work? So, very basic rundown of how we even get to a conduct process. My office receives reports. I receive reports from a lot of different areas. It could be anyone that submits a report, but the top two that I see in my office are residents' life reports and security reports, which makes sense because those are the folks that are here 24/7, and those are the ones usually handling situations. Once the report is received, I review it, and what I do is I say, okay, if everything in this report is true, what are the potential violations, if any, and where do we go from here? And there's lots of different places I can go. So no action means, yeah, there's no violation here. Like, we don't need to move forward. That could be me kicking it back to residents' life to say, hey, sounds like you've got some roommate conflict, you may want to go figure that out and handle that. But there's no actual violation of our student integrity code. It could lead to an investigation where I say, okay, there's something here, but we definitely need to figure out what's going on. And so and that could be a tiny investigation with a couple people involved. That could be a big investigation with 15, 20 people involved, just depending on the situation. It could go to another office. So sometimes we receive reports where I'm like, nope, that's Title IX, or nope, that's discrimination harassment, and those go to other places before they come back to me for adjudication. So I could be pushing that off there. Or if it's an academic integrity, I had a faculty member one time submit a report to me that is really handled through the academic integrity process, and so making sure that gets forwarded to the right place. Or we could go straight into a conduct process. So we have a noise violation, there's a beer in someone's hand and they're under 21. Often that's not an investigation needed, we're just moving right to a conduct process with the hall director or a peer board. If there is an investigation, that after I'm done with the investigation, that can still result in no action. Just because I'm launching an investigation doesn't mean I'm digging and trying to find and trying to pinpoint and say, yep, here we go. So I have come out of investigations and said, yeah, there's no alleged violation here, we're closing this case, and then we're done. Or it could mean we're going to a conduct process, and that can go to different places as well. If there is a conduct process, what we're looking at is a student or a group or organization responsible or not responsible for violating our student integrity code. And if they've been alleged to have violated 2 or 3 different things, it's not a package deal. We look at every single one individually to determine, are they responsible or not for this one? Are they responsible or not for this one? And then if they are found responsible for one or more, they are assigned sanctions, which are really educational opportunities to hold the student accountable and push them forward in a positive direction, whatever that means for them. And then if they choose to, the student integrity code will walk them through if they'd like to appeal that decision. Whether it's the decision of finding them responsible, they feel like the sanction is too harsh based on what happened, there's lots of different ways they can appeal and submit that appeal. Now we're at the questions. What questions do you have? Yeah.
So I believe when the student senate approved this or gave their approval, it was with like the caveat that there would be a review specifically for the section discussing disruption and
Yep.
protest. Is that still
Yep.
the case?
Oh yeah, we committed to that. We're not going to forget about it. Yeah. And we've been talking about that. There will be a committee formed very quickly here pretty soon. And we're going to get moving on that. You know, when we say we commit to those things, please know we're not just going, we commit, wink, wink, and now we're going to, it's summer and hopefully you forgot. No, we're continuing to work on that.
What will that committee do?
They're going to review 2A. So first off, if you want to find our code, if you go to the homepage and search for the student handbook, this will pop up and you see student integrity code right here. And the nice thing is it's now split, so you can jump to the section you want to, which is beautiful. So standards, so 2A is what we're talking about. And so, can everybody see that? So that's what we're continuing to evaluate and determine. So I will say this is the code moving forward for this year. So a couple of things to think about with this. Number one, we are not anti-protest demonstration. We're not. Number two, if to even think about something as a potential violation of the student integrity code, no matter where it is, I have to receive a report. I can guarantee you I don't receive a report about everything that happened on this campus. And then also a lot of things don't, some things that I get don't rise to the level of an alleged violation. And I have a lot of resources at my disposal as far as colleagues, as far as at our institution and others, to be able to consult to say, hey, here's what I'm looking at, what are your thoughts, where do we go from here? So that we don't end up violating students' rights in those ways, because that's not the goal. So yes, the commitment is, the commitment for the whole thing is to review the whole thing, but we have made a commitment to ASUPs to get a committee together to review that specific standard to see where we go with that in the future.
So standard 2, the whole thing, not
2A.
just 2A. Oh, just 2A.
That's what my understanding was. We may look at the whole standard too. Other questions that you have for me?
Where can you go to file a report?
Yeah, let's pull that up. Right there, front and center. So if you click on the student conduct process, so lots of different ways. You can do it in person or via email. And if you go email, conduct@pugetsound.edu. And so we do encourage timely reports. The amount of time that's passed may limit our ability to respond, investigate, or adjudicate the situation that's happened. But we want people to. So the other thing too, and this has happened in the past too, students will sometimes schedule a meeting with me and say, I don't know if this is a violation, but I want to talk to you. And then I welcome that too. Just because I may say, hey, yeah, that's not really a violation, I've ended up in conversations about, okay, but how do we have that conversation with our roommate? Or what would then be a violation when you need to come back to me? How do we support you with what resources are available to you there? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yep. So, and you can always call too. I've had phone conversations with folks about even just kind of doing that check of like, is it something I need to come in and report? That's okay. If you're a student leader in Res Life, or you know a student leader in Res Life, they also have access to our database where they can file a report electronically that way too. Yeah.
Were there any changes to the student rights and responsibilities? Could we look at that one?
Yeah, compared to the old code, yes, because it's more, we put more in there. So in a good way, yes. And you'll see duplicates. So we, because in this, students have rights and they have responsibilities through a process. And so you'll see duplicates because some things are both. Like you have the right to a support person, but it's your responsibility to find one and bring them, right? So it's both a right and a responsibility. So students have the right to receive notification in writing, which that's always been the case. To receive notification in writing of the decision and of any applicable sanctions, which has always been the case. To ask for a change in hearing officer or integrity board member or sexual misconduct board member. And that's a right and responsibility too, because we let you know who your hearing officer is, who your board members are, and then you have the responsibility to let us know if there's a conflict before the hearing happens. To have 5 business days notice before an integrity board, so again, giving students time to review their case file and prepare for a hearing. To have a timely process, to have a pre-hearing meeting. Those are optional. Students will get a meeting scheduled for that, but it is optional to show up, and that's just where I sit down with them and walk them through step by step on what does a board look like, how do you prepare for a board, what things might you want to consider, what questions might you want to ask, what is an opening statement, how do you even write that. So I kind of help walk a student through that because that's scary, and I want to have them be as prepared as possible for that process. To have confidentiality as applicable, to have a support person, to have the presumption of not having violated the student integrity code. So sometimes people come in and say, well, I'm guilty until proven innocent. That's not how it works, and we don't use terms like guilty. So you are assumed to have not violated the student integrity code. We're looking at all the information you have to determine if you have or not. To have the burden of proof put on the university. To have the violations decided by the preponderance of the evidence standards, which means is it more likely than not. To appeal if found responsible, to review policies and procedures and ask questions, to decline to answer questions or make statements without adverse inference, exercising one's right not to share information, answer questions, or participate in an investigation or hearing does not prohibit the conduct office from moving forward. So a student has the right not to share any information with us, not to answer anything, but that doesn't stop the process from moving forward. They're just exercising their right not to say anything. And then to participate in the hearing process. And so then you'll see very similar language down here. Yeah.
You just go back up at the question about something towards the top. The bullet point number 4, it says, unless such notice is waived.
Yep, I've had students, I could leave that in there, and that's always the student's choice, not ours.
Okay.
Yeah, so because I've had students where we schedule it out for that long, and they're like, can we please just do this now? Like, I don't need time, I don't want to wait. Like, they're nervous, it's stressful, I get it, and maybe midterms or finals are coming up. And so I have had students ask for a quicker hearing. So that's what that's leaving us the room to do.
Great.
We're not going to do that without a student signing up on that. Yeah. No, everything's always in the student's favor when it comes to the timing and things like that. Other questions? Okay, so with this, student intake, the conduct process is often seen as, this is the office that holds students accountable. We also have leadership positions. Talked to France was on our peer board, sorry to call you out there with that, but we have peer board and we have great leadership opportunities for students to get involved in a very different way in the community and helping us with this process. Not only helping the process run, but also helping have conversations with students and providing very up close and personal feedback because they're working in the process. So if you have students who are interested or yourself are interested, let me know because we definitely need more peer board members. Anything else you need from me?
No, I think it would be helpful to talk through, if you submit a report, like what information about your submission might be shared or not shared with the person that is kind of going through the process of being responsible. Just because
Yeah.
I know that I've run up into that.
Yeah, so it's not clear, which is, I live in the gray area with that. But, so let's say an RA files a report. The student sees the report, the student knows which RA filed the report. Students sometimes get nervous, and I think maybe bring this up to the BD work with me on some cases where students got pretty nervous about it, where, especially when I have investigations and witnesses coming in about, is my name going to be a part of this? And the answer is 99% of the time, yes. Because students have a right on the responding side, so we call them complainants and respondents. Complainant is someone who maybe has been affected by somebody's behavior. Respondent is someone who's being accused of something, right, alleged to have done something. And the respondent has the right to know who said what so they can respond to it. Because otherwise it's like me saying, hey Vivi, remember that one time when you were mean to somebody? Tell me about that. Like, when was that? Like, I could have been mean to somebody at any point in time. Like, that's not fair. And the whole point is to have a fair process. And so, yes, we do use students' names. We are upfront with that with students. And what I hear often from students with that is they're afraid of retaliation, which that's a normal thing to fear. I can tell you in my 13 plus years working in higher education and conduct in some way, shape, or form, I have yet to see retaliation happen, which is good. And that's another thing we made clear in our code is we put retaliation front and center because it was one thing for me to say, yeah, we will hold a student accountable for retaliation, but it's another thing to actually have it written in front of you. And so let me pull that open real quick. This part. Okay. Sorry, I was not the one who did our website, so now I have to find it. I'm gonna find it and send it to you. So
Yeah,
I'm
we
just
should just
not.
talk about it.
Yeah. So retaliation is not tolerated at all through the commitment process. And so that really, and I explain that to students too. If retaliation happens, that falls on the students because I'm not everywhere, right? And so it's important that the student lets me know that that's happening. If there's an emergency, obviously calling security services. And if it's a non-emergency, sending me an email, calling me, stopping by the office. And the way the code has changed too is we are also now clear that these things can happen in person, written, online, electronically, by phone, by third party. So we spell that out in there too. So it's not just I came up to be being retaliated, but maybe I had friends go and do it for me.
In that case, what if the student who reported an incident feels threatened or like unsafe on campus?
Yep.
What measures does the campus go to at all to protect that student?
Yeah, and it depends on the situation on who's doing what there. So if it's sexual misconduct, they're going to go straight to our deputy Title IX coordinator, and our deputy Title IX coordinator under Title IX guidelines has the ability to do no contact orders, classroom moves, residence hall moves, like whatever they need to do to make that person safe. They have that at their disposal to do. I have similar things, but it's usually for other kinds of threatening behavior. But we work very closely together because even if the Title IX says I'm putting a no contact order in place, my office is the one that upholds that.
Okay.
So I manage all of those, and both of our signatures are on the bottom of those letters. So it really depends. There's no promise. What I do with students is when they're feeling unsafe, because what I've found on our campus is sometimes people say that I'm unsafe, but really I'm just uncomfortable, I'm not unsafe. And so I try to pick apart what does that actually look like to see, are you actually really unsafe? And then if yes, here's what we're gonna do. And we have all kinds of emergency action in our measures that are listed in here, but no contact order is one of them. So maybe it's not a true, like, can't be on the same campus as this person, but we just need to stay away from each other. So that's kind of our way of doing that. Now, I will say we are not the law. A no contact order is not a restraining order. So I have teeth in the conduct process with that, but not in the law, in the legal sense of that. So if the student is truly unsafe and needs to get a restraining order, they need to go get that off campus. Ours is no contact, and it's kind of our student bubble.
So it's okay to work with official law officers and the school? Okay.
Absolutely, two very separate processes. And we name that in there too. So yes, they can do that. We have no contact orders, we have no contact agreements. Because sometimes it's both parties saying they need to stay away from me, and so we can put that in place. And those can be as loose or as strict as they need to be. Sometimes it's just stay away from each other. And sometimes it's Vivi, you're going to exit out that door, Jess is going to exit out this door, you're going to go in opposite directions. So like they can get as specific as we need them to be. We work with faculty as needed, and as confidentially as we possibly can without, disrupting that student's education. We have things like what we call an interim suspension. So let's say there's been some threatening behavior that we need the student removed right now while we figure things out because there's a threat to an individual or community that's very serious. We have the ability to get them off campus immediately prior to a conduct process happening. So it runs a big range of what we're able to do. And we also have a threat assessment team that works to evaluate threats to our campus as well and to individuals. I will send the links to Vivi, Dave, and Skylar for this, and I will specifically also